of Stevens Point Bicycle and Pedestrian Street Safety Commission, recorded February 11th, 2021.
So we will begin this meeting on February 11th for the Stevens Point Bicycle and Pedestrian Street Safety Commission. First, we'll take a roll call. Commissioner O'Mara.
Here.
Commissioner Lane Brown.
She emailed me yesterday that she might be excused. She might be absent, so she is excused if she's not on the call.
Okay, got it. Thanks. Commissioner Jadrella Finn.
Here.
All right. Commissioner Leek. Looks like
Here.
he's still
Can
on
you hear
the
me?
phone. Yeah, we can hear you. Cool.
Okay.
Sorry, Alder Leek. Yeah, so he is present. And then Commissioner Fehrenbach. He said he might be late. He did send me a message. So he's going to plan to attend, but he might be late. All right. So we do have quorum. We'll keep moving onward with our agenda. And that brings us to item 2, persons who wish to address the commission for up to 3 minutes on a non-agenda item. Are there any commissioners that have non-agenda items for up to 3 minutes? Anybody raising their hand? I do have one. So if nobody's raising their hand, I could say just a friendly reminder to please clear those curb cuts. So everyone has access to our city sidewalks. Sometimes we as residents shovel our sidewalk, but it's before the plows come through. And most of us clear that curb cut or the dip, the ramp that meets the street. Most of us clear that afterwards, but sometimes the plows come through again for a second round, blocking the sidewalk. So please double check those a second time. Sometimes those turn into ice, even like a 3-inch height berm or chunks of ice can make it sometimes impassable for someone that has mobility issues or someone that uses a wheelchair, walker, cane, etc. So it can be extremely difficult to navigate the city. For example, my friend's neighbor, who actually lives very close, only a couple blocks away, he actually told her he hates the winter, and she didn't know why. She asked, and then he said that he can't go anywhere because he uses a wheelchair. So, you know, this is really unfortunate to hear, third party, and I know we can do better. So not everyone drives, so a reminder of that. So when that snow piles up, please just double check those curb cuts and your sidewalks. All right. Any other commissioners or anyone in the audience? Oh, Commissioner Fehrenbach. Hey,
I just wanted to say here for roll call.
There we go. Thanks for joining us.
And I would just make a quick address. I also do a little winter biking to get around town, and I have been amazed at how many bikes I see out, even in this cold weather. I see a lot of people out on bikes, so I just want everybody to be aware that people don't put the bikes away for the winter, and it is important. You know, the city does a good job of clearing the streets, and the new bike lanes are working, and even the contraflow lanes are a little bit, they don't get plowed quite as well, but they're still passable. So I kind of believe that maybe the addition of all the bike lanes has made people more confident to continue to bike year round. So.
Thank you for that note. Anyone else, commissioner or someone in the audience, guest joining us, anybody want to speak for up to 3 minutes on a non-agenda item? Anybody seeing a hand raised or anything? Okay, I see nothing. We will move on to discussion and action, possible action items.
Sorry, I wasn't quick.
Oh,
sorry, I wasn't quick enough.
Alder Jennings. Yep, go ahead.
Since this is a non-agenda item, could I ask if Director Badoon is here? Could I ask a theoretical question that does, I think, relate to streets and bike ped and everything else? Director Badoon, are you?
I am here, yes.
Go ahead.
Theoretical question. The 4 to 3 lane conversions, is it plausible that streets become more durable because the travel lane has been moved more to the center part of the road? So thinking about drainage and whatnot. So is there any possibility that roads will last longer? The roads that we have will last longer because of the lane conversions? And maybe that can't be answered, but it's something I've been thinking about.
It's a big question.
Honest, yeah, I'm not sure there really is, an answer for that. There's so many variables, but there are 3 things that deteriorate asphalt. It's UV rays, it's water, and it's the load that they take through fatigue, so heavy truck traffic and such. So just because you're moving it somewhere else on the pavement, doesn't really change that. It's still the same loading. You still have the same UV. You still have the same amount of water, depending upon how new the asphalt is. So I would tend to say, if it does, it's not anything significant.
Okay. Thank you, Director. Thanks for
Thanks.
asking, Alder Jennings. Anyone else with a non-agenda item for up to 3 minutes? Looking for hands raised. Okay, seeing none, we shall move on to item 3 of the discussion and possible action on the following. So item 3, report of the January 14th, 2021 meeting of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Street Safety Commission. Is there a motion on the table to approve?
I move to approve.
Motion, is there a second?
I second.
Ooh, I think Janet won that one, Michael. Sorry about that.
I'm okay.
I know you're in, skiing utopia, but Janet did win on the
The
couch.
snow's really slow in this weather.
Right.
It is.
All right, so we have any discussion on the minutes or the report from the last meeting? Any discussion? I'm just checking hands here. Okay, I see nothing, no questions or discussion. All right, so all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, or raise your hand.
Aye.
Either. Okay, I think we have everybody. Alder Leek, that was you, right? That piped in? I think so.
I did say aye after
Okay.
but
Sorry,
yeah,
I didn't
I'm
see
in
it.
favor.
It's kind of complicated here, but
Oh,
cool. All right, we have any nays? Nope, looks like it was consensus here, so the motion carries. All right, item 4, discussion and possible action on the 2021 through 2026. Boop, 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 boop. Strategic goals. Sorry, we'll read that again. I was cut off there. Going back to my notes. So item 4, discussion and possible action on the 2021 through 2026 strategic goals of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Street Safety Commission. All right, so we've had a couple of meetings in December and January discussing future goals of this commission as it coincides with the county-wide bike ped plan and the city's responsible components of that plan, as well as potentially other initiatives that are directly related. And we've spent a couple months on that for those that are joining us for the first time. And this is kind of just about our final, or potentially could be our final round of discussion on the goals and how they're laid out. So staff laid out the goals into kind of a achievable, table style per goal, which is very useful for us and staff as both entities continue to move through and achieve these goals, kind of like a timeline along with who's responsible and details in the steps to completion and challenges laid out. So without further ado, I think Assistant Planner Adam Kuhn's going to take over from here and run through all the goals with us.
So the chair did present kind of an overview over the strategic goal setting that we've done over the last few months, whereas, December, we introduced the concept of goal setting. January, we honed in on the specific goals, more the collaborative goals that all the commissioners had that this commission will take on over the next year and 2021 through 2026. So in this document here that was included in the agenda packet and that's shown on your screen is essentially the culmination of these last 3 months of discussion, where all the goals, I believe 14, 16 goals, are the same goals that we discussed last month. The only difference now in this document is that there's a little bit more detail as far as how are we going to achieve each goal, outlining, the specific steps, the specific objectives that would need to be met in order to complete this goal as a whole. So, and I guess I should say first, for the steps to completion, the timeline, who's going to be involved, that these are our estimates as far as on the staff level, as far as how we're going to achieve each goal, that there's likely going to be some fluctuation, in terms of the timeline. That might be a specific step might be bumped back a month or bumped ahead of a month, or there might be fewer or additional steps that may come about as staff, EPSSC, works through completing each of these goals. And I think another thing that's important to mention to her is that each of these goals have some challenges listed to essentially make aware on the staff level and also for this commission of what are going to be some obstacles that we're expected to see, and then what are some steps to help mitigate that. So some of the common challenges were, goals that involve funding. Funding might, if there's any funding challenges to accomplish, for example, the bicycle corral at the library, that might prolong slightly the achievement of this goal, or any educational initiatives that this commission is looking at doing. Any in-person interaction will be limited, at least for the next few months yet, due to the ongoing pandemic. So staff does feel that overall that this document outlines in a sufficient detail at this time how we're going to achieve each step, and then ways to help mitigate potential problems that we could see upon implementing and fulfilling these goals. So I won't spend the time, I guess, to go through each goal, since we spent a fair amount of time last month discussing each of them. So staff is looking at this time for any general feedback that you have with regards to this document, and subsequently motion to approve this strategic goals document and then place it on file for staff to implement.
Adam?
Sure.
Could you still go, like, let's look at goal 1. Does anybody have any comments? Let's look at goal 2. Does anybody have any comments? Because I have some for several of them, suggestions or things that I wanted to point out, not huge things, but could you still go through them?
Sure.
Address them one by one?
Yeah, we can do that. So yeah, I guess then the first goal would be, as I alluded to before, would be installing the bike corral within the 2 parking stalls in front of the county library. So I don't know if there's any comments, questions that any of the commissioners have with regards to this goal.
Commissioner Dragella-Finn?
I do happen to have a small one on this one.
Sure.
If it's meant to go along with our discussion of the draft last month, where it says under the steps to completion, the very first one, consult with Stevens Point Alliance. And if that's meant to be a reference to Stevens Point Arts Alliance, there is no longer a Stevens Point Arts Alliance, and it's called Create Portage County, which was on the draft we discussed. So that, I think should be corrected.
Commissioner Finn, Stevens Point Alliance is the new name for the Downtown Association.
Oh, thank you. Okay. All right. So that's a different thing. So we're not worried about Create Portage County as what was listed in the draft from before. Okay. Thanks.
I do have
changes.
Thanks, Director. I'll share one concern too, and challenges number one. It says, second sentence, commissioners and city staff should consider alternatives, off-street corral placement, if necessary, to facilitate additional bicycle infrastructure. I think there's an issue with that because it kind of defeats part of the purpose of this goal. The goal says placing within 2 parking stalls. If you ride your bicycle along Main Street and then you're looking to the left for bike parking, and if it's stocked with cars, let's say we're at 95 to 100% capacity downtown with automobile parking, you actually don't see any bike parking. It's on the hitches are on the sidewalk because that's what we retrofitted, right, as a city. However, a corral, kind of like the one next to the Children's Museum, super visible, right? Because that bump out makes it that way. A corral and parking stalls is even just as visible. The bike parking right now at the library is not. And then if you place it there, so if you say, well, we don't want to intrude on parking spots because people are making a fuss. Well, if you put it off the street, it's now mixing pedestrians and bicyclists, which is another hazard, and again, harder to access. So I do have a concern about that statement.
So could we amend it to say, instead of should consider, we could consider alternatives? When we were putting this together, the thought process, Mr. Chair, was regarding maybe some of the political pushback that staff and the BPSSC may get from the Downtown Point Alliance. I don't want to speak for that organization, but they are very much against removing any parking stalls for any other uses. And so that's something that I just, could instead of should as a possibility is an alternative.
Yeah, meet in the middle, right? I guess I can go with that. It doesn't make sense to the purpose, but I guess I could.
Chairman Rohr?
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner.
I would disagree. Our purpose is to get a corral that works well in the vicinity of the library. Our purpose is not to eliminate parking. I think the way they had it, we might say that that's what I would put in there. And if they can come up with something that is superior to function, that's the function. Provide safe, secure parking near the library. And
I hear what you're saying.
Easy to use. Now,
I hear what you're saying, but just do me a favor and do a bird's eye view of yourself biking down Main Street or from 3rd Street and getting to that bike parking. You actually don't see it because it's behind a wall, for one. So if you're a visitor, you don't see it.
I agree with that, but let us do a design that when we set design parameters, they should be with what we want to achieve. And I don't think that BPSB wants to say our goal is to eliminate parking. You want to get that you get disenfranchised, that's the way you do it. You say you want to provide the best optimal parking at this location, and it may be that you eliminate a parking space, it may be not, but don't design for something that has nothing to do with our purpose.
Oh,
Getting rid of parking cannot.
We'll talk about that later. It's a little different, but Anyway, yeah,
No, really, it can't.
I'll reserve to go to could. We'll meet in the middle there. Just, yeah, change it to could like you did.
But I think on any of these design things, we have to say what we want to achieve. And there's nothing in our charge that says we're going to eliminate vehicular parking. It may
I would
happen.
disagree, but we'll talk about that later. You know, for example, we're supposed to achieve certain percentage of ride share for bicycling and walking. And if you don't make biking and walking more convenient, safer, and more beautiful than driving, you don't achieve those goals. You just don't. And that's really hard to do. Yeah. So anyway,
I agree with you.
Moving on.
And can we clarify, is the front of the library the Clark Street side or the Main Street side?
Main Street side.
That's the front?
Yes.
So I think really what we were trying to achieve here is identifying that, yes, having additional bicycle corrals and the infrastructure that's visible in the downtown is an important part of what the goal of this commission is. This at least provides staff and the BPSSC opportunities to look at other alternatives. Maybe it's not in a parking stall, maybe it's in the bump out in front of the library where it says Shafton's retail store. Maybe we look at relocating some of the planters for something like that, make them more visible. But I think just in identifying that additional bicycle corrals in the downtown is one of the goals. And so I like the idea of keeping the could consider alternatives. I think that there's other stakeholders that we've got to bring in on this conversation.
Right.
And you know, at the end of the day, the PSSC can make a recommendation, but we've got to be thinking about other stakeholders as we go through this process as well.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thanks, Director.
I got to say, I really envisioned it on the pad on the Clark Street side, which wouldn't take up parking spaces. It would be easy access because you can get to it from the parking lot. I don't know. It's my thought.
Yeah, there's a grid rack right there now. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, replace that.
Anything else on goal one from the commissioner or from the audience, from the public? All right, Adam, goal two.
Yeah, so goal number 2 is including educational initiatives in any future communication that comes from the city. So I guess on the page is pretty self-explanatory as far as the commission will need to determine, you know, what types of educational initiatives to showcase in any of these communications that we have, and then some of the steps outline, you know, some situations that we would have to address, such as, you know, the type of initiative may require some budgeting to take care of the expense that would occur as a result of that. And then the challenges outlined more so, you know, being cognizant of trying to reach a greater audience, of the broadest audience that you can, while making sure that there's also a high response rate, that people are going to take note of these educational initiatives that the commission ascertains, and then make something out of it, essentially. So I don't know if there's any comments with this goal.
Anyone from the commission or the audience, the public? I'll just say it's a good one.
All right. I guess we can move on to goal number 3, is creating a brochure to highlight the city's bike-friendly community silver designation that we received, say, about a month, 2 months now. So this ties in really well with the last goal that we talked about, which is more so, you know, trying to better educate the public what the bike-friendly community status entails, and specifically how significant of an achievement it is to reach the silver designation. So the challenge is, the one that staff put on there is to tried to tie in, bicycling as a broad concept with how it impacts people on a day-to-day basis. So, some of the steps, some of the details that was included were talking about the health, economic, environmental benefits of cycling to try to hone in on, all the benefits of bicycling and how that relates to our designation of bicycle-friendly community.
I concur, and this brochure, by showing how bicycling improves quality of life, and the silver designation shows how we're striving for it. That also can be a great promotional deal for tourism and business expansion promotion.
And likewise, it would tie in really well with the next goal that we'll talk about with the bike-friendly business
Yes.
designation as well.
If I might speak, just a caution with that too and you actually have that in there, but not having it too information packed, that things like these, like just to hit the important details and what each brochure or flyer needs to say. Without hammering anybody over the head with having to read too many words, but you do acknowledge that on there too.
Awesome. Any other comments? All right, hearing none, we'll step over to the fourth goal as we were just talking about, encouraging 5 local businesses to apply for a bike-friendly business designation. So in order to achieve this goal, there's several different buckets that would need to be filled. And again, this is going to be a multi-year process overall. First is identifying which businesses to reach out to encourage them to apply. Second would be is once you determine these businesses, assist them through the application process. And then the last bucket, and I don't know how much we talked about this last month, and I think is key to acknowledge as well, is that, any of these businesses that would receive a bike-friendly business designation, that there has to be follow-up, there has to be encouragement over the course of the 4 years after they receive this designation to encourage them to improve their standing as a bike-friendly business, and then subsequently to reapply for a designation as well. So encouraging this more cyclical nature where businesses not only continue to apply for this designation, but we also bring in additional businesses as well as the years go on. So some of the challenges outlined more so, the cost, the work and time is going to take to complete an application, and especially honing in that, city staff, that any commissioners, especially if there's any commissioners who want to volunteer in assisting businesses through the application process, that would be something we would want to acknowledge at the forefront. I don't know if there's any questions or comments, concerns.
Do we want to have a sub goal that we would ask to be put on an agenda of the Alliance or Portage County Business Council, because those are very target-rich environments, and that would you'd probably get a lot of bang for your buck. And so maybe have a sub goal that we would make a presentation to, if we could, to one or both of those organizations.
Yeah, I think that would bode pretty well with the first step. When we're in the stage where we're identifying local businesses, that that would be a good point for at least the outreach portion of it.
Because I'm thinking that we can try to guess who would be responsive, but if we can get a chance that we're in a forum where they're all there, we might catch somebody that we never thought would be interested.
Right, and just to piggyback on that, Commissioner O'Mara, even if they aren't bicycle friendly according to the check boxes, they might want to achieve such things. So they might look at the application anyway and say, oh, well, I never thought of this. This is great. Let me try this. So it could bring about a lot of good discussion and ideas. And then Adam, sorry to interject, after we get any final questions or comments on Goal 4, I want to address a question in the chat, if we could.
Sure.
Anyone have any other questions or comments from the commission or the public on Goal 4? I'll just say that I am super stoked that this is a goal. That's pretty cool.
And as the commissioners may have noticed, when we sent the report card a few months ago, or last month, I believe, showing, what steps out of the 5 E's where the city ranks for the silver designation, on the top, it did also include the amount of bike-friendly universities and the bike-friendly businesses as well. So, there's a distinct correlation between the bike-friendly business application process and the bike-friendly community process as well.
Cool. And then before we jump to the next one and before the question, Adam, can you do me a favor and just expand that view to 1 page so that it's a bit larger? I know that looking at this, my visual abilities are fine, but I think people that might be visually impaired or have any visual concerns, bigger is going to be better.
Sure.
Thank you. All right, addressing that question from the chat from Larry. Larry says, what is the square footage of an average bike corral? So just so you know, Larry, it does vary. It just depends on how many bikes you want to park there. It could be anywhere from 4 bikes all the way up to 10. Usually the average is 10 to 12. So it just depends on the design you're looking for and the footprint you're working in. Good question though.
Thanks. I did find some pictures. I just looked online for some, and
Cool.
I did find some. Thanks. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. All right, back to Goal 5.
Yeah, so increasing the usage and education of bicycle lanes. So as you can see in the goal, it's more of a 2-part goal, separating both the usage and the educational components of it. So, a clear thing to, I guess, state about this goal is that there's going to have to be a considerable amount of discussion as far as, what are going to be the specific ways to increase usage and increase and improve the education of bicycle lanes, knowing the differences between each pavement markings and how are we going to educate the public. Is it going to be in person, which is going to be, as alluded to in the first challenge, is going to be difficult, at least in the short term, due to the ongoing pandemic. Increasing the usage, are there ways outside of just the educational component where we could encourage more folks here in the city to use the bike lanes year round? So that's something where, there's going to have to be a fair amount of discussions amongst city staff, amongst this commission, and as outlined in the second step with local organizations as well, to harness different inputs to overall try to get an overall consensus of what we should do going forward.
Commissioner Romero?
I think one of the things we could look to is the education we did for the roundabout, and it told people how to use it and what to expect. I think we can look to that effort to see how we could incorporate a lot of the same techniques in education about the bike lanes.
Mm-hmm.
Great point. Director Badoon, if you recall, was it the consultant, the design consultant that came out with that material? I remember there was a really nice handout that laid it out pretty well, along with the public involvement meeting.
I guess, yeah, there were actually a few different things that were used. I mean, much actually of what, we had actually came from the DOT or federal highway.
Nice. Cool. So I imagine there's additional resources. I've probably seen them, but don't recall, on the League of American Bicyclists website, as well as Wisconsin Bike Fed website, and probably state DOT. Probably some good manuals and booklets and flyers for this. I used to have some physical copies, but I think they're dated now. Any other commissioners' comments, questions, or anyone from the public on goal number 5?
I could make
Yep.
another detailed comment, because this will eventually be a, kind of an official document, and because it's the actual label or title of the goal, I'd just like to suggest a little bit different wording on it. Increase the usage and education of bicycle lanes. I'm an English teacher, retired. And to me, I look at that and see that we're educating bicycle lanes. So just if you would consider maybe increase the usage of and educating the community about bicycle lanes, makes that goal clearer, because if they're just going to be listed as goals, that might not be as clear.
Very well spoken, Commissioner Drew Elephant. Thank you.
Oh yeah, okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that too. That's good.
Okay.
Any other comments or feedback on goal 5? I'm seeing none here, Adam.
So then goal number 6 is submitting a walkable friendly community application. So this is something, that's going to be a goal that's going to be kind of held in the background, so to speak, as far as, achieving the steps to submit an application. So I have done some looking already at the application itself, and it's pretty similar in terms of the different sections of the bicycle friendly community application, where there's a considerable amount of questions about the engineering component of engineering, about planning, things like that. So one of the challenges is essentially trying to answer some of the questions as maybe difficult, or it just might take a while to get that data, to extract that data. So starting this process sooner rather than later would be beneficial to make sure that the answers that we have, or that we're going to include in the application rather, is concise and accurate. And then like the second one, that there are some areas where we do score poor or fair in. So just noting that, the purpose of this, of submitting a walkable friendly community application, is in part to gauge where the city stands in these different criteria, and then use that report card that we get as a guiding document, so to speak, for the city to work on, at least from the pedestrian component of this commission, and then working and trying to improve our scores for the next time when our application is due when we submit a new application that we can achieve for a greater status.
Thank you, Adam. Remind me again, is this through America Walks, the LAB, SGA, do you remember? Hosting organization?
Can look it up. I think it is out of the let me check here.
Okay.
Well, the website is walkfriendly.org.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that's the
So that's
business, or
it's a separate entity.
Okay, so it is a unique. Okay, thanks.
Its own entity, yeah.
Any other comments or questions from commission or the public on goal 6? Okay, see none.
All right, so then goal number 7 is increasing communication and collaboration between this commission and the County's Traffic Safety Commission. So one of the, as you can see, there's the two steps that we have on this for this goal is to first meet with the chair of the county's commission to outline, what is this commission's desires in achieving and improving communication between the two commissions. And then secondly, having amongst city staff, county staff, this commission, depending on how those discussions go with the chair and other parties involved on a county level, determine areas that these two commissions can work together. And again, as we include on there, priority should be given to achieving those 5 E's that the chair has mentioned over the last few meetings. So that's the overall discussion that staff took from our conversations last month regarding this goal. And one of the key challenges is, challenge number 1 is that the county's commission, their directives, their goals may be contrary to the goals of this commission. So there has to, that the discussions that would take place at the onset would be very much beneficial in determining what are these overlap areas, where are these areas of agreement where the two commissions can work together to achieve these commonly defined goals.
I think DOT is trying to get bicycles and pedestrians into their goals insofar as Dave Moret, who is the bicycle and pedestrian coordinator for DOT, sits on it.
Okay.
And they, right now, to get federal aid on any roadway that has over 700 vehicles per day, they have to have a statement on how they are accommodating pedestrians and bicycles. And so this won't be new to them. It'll just be that perhaps they're not used to the urban stuff, but we have state trunk highways going through the city.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Good point. Thanks, Commissioner. Any other comments or feedback on goal 7? Seeing none again. Goal 8.
All right, so goal number 8 is enforce and educate on the city's Vision Zero policy. So there were just some discussions that staff had internally and with the chair, I believe, a week or 2 ago, as far as more so the last step of the goal completion is to evaluate the effectiveness of our existing statement towards the city's Vision Zero policy, and explore are there ways where there can be some additional detail, additional criteria that could occur. And I know there have been discussions in the past between the chair, Director Ostrowski, my predecessor, Associate Planner Kearns, as far as what are ways that we can strengthen the existing resolution in place. So that would be one of the steps that would occur within this goal, is to evaluate the existing resolution that was adopted, I believe, in 2017, 2018, and see, are there ways that we can expand on that going forward?
Associate Planner Kuhn, I actually have a clarification here. I think you were referring to the Complete Streets resolution.
Yeah.
For either part of that or most of that, because that was, the statement that our commission came up with, and we've been talking about strengthening. Vision Zero, as you know, is a different policy. So I don't know. We have a Complete Streets goal, correct? I think.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. I believe the resolution was passed somewhat recently, a few years back, I believe.
Yeah, it was December. I think it was December 2018, I believe, if my memory is correct, for the Complete Streets resolution. Mm-hmm. Vision Zero, I think, might have been before that. That was President Johnson. Actually, didn't even go through the Bike Ped Commission.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be a lot of action on Complete Streets in that. Mm-hmm. The new Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, talked about it in his accepting a position.
Yeah, we're excited. Hopefully, hopefully actions do speak louder than words.
Adam,
Commissioner Delafin.
okay.
Since the Vision Zero policy, it says on here that it educates elected officials and the public on it through information materials. And since I am new to city government, I'm still kind of just a member of the public. That word policy, and it threw me off because this was a new thing. And I remember Kathy Lane Brown asking at our last meeting, what is that? You know, and it's meant to be zero deaths, right, on our city streets. Policy, that word sounds to me like a rule or a directive or even just a statement. It's our policy not to have anybody die on the streets. So, and especially if this is going to go out to the public, I checked on that because I just couldn't fit it in my head. Like, what does that mean? Vision Zero policy. So I Googled it. I just Googled Vision Zero, and visionzeronetwork.org actually calls it a Vision Zero action plan. Isn't that what we're actually trying to put together? And maybe that term Vision Zero policy is all over city documents and stuff, but we're really trying to create an action plan. And I think that would really clarify what we're doing and what this means. Is it's a plan to make our streets safer. So another suggestion for considering a word change for that particular goal.
Yeah, to that. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Fehrenbach.
Janet, that's a good idea.
Oh,
I think the idea of the policy is that there will be certain things that in all city actions, we will look at Vision Zero. So something may take place in the police department, something may take place in the parks department, as well as the street departments. And the policy says is when you're going to take an action, you're going to see how it fits in with our overall Vision Zero. And that's a tough deal to do, but that's what they're trying to get at.
Well, then maybe if it still needs to use that term, maybe it's when speaking to the public about it, as is mentioned here, information materials for the public.
Yes.
The referral to it being an action plan would make more sense to the community, community members, and the city, the entities have their policy that they're supposed to follow, but we need to know in the community that this is the plan that the city is coming up with. If it can be different.
I think the action plan is how we develop the policies that will become the directives as we take city actions in the future. You know, you're not going to design a place where people come and go that isn't accessible to bicycles and pedestrians. That would go to the Plan Commission and to the Board of Public Works. Those policies are what will direct what has things going, but the action plan is how we're going to arrive at what those policies are.
Right.
Our policy isn't zero death, because that's a nice thing, but
right, that's the
it's
goal.
how do we achieve it?
Right. Yeah, which is, and just again, the term that visionzeronetwork.org uses is the Vision Zero action plan, but there maybe is a
Yes, I agree with
policy
that.
and an action plan. Yeah.
Yeah, the idea is that we want to get these policies and make them so ingrained in city government that people don't even think about it when they're applying them. They just do it.
Commissioner Fehrenbach.
I'm reminded of the quote by Herm Edwards, "A goal without a plan is just a wish."
Mhm.
But my point was, you can't see it on your screen, but under challenge number 2, Adam, I think there's something grammatically wrong with challenge number 2.
Yeah, likes and agrees.
Is it just get rid of likes? Is that what it is?
Correct.
So, great points. I think I'm on the same page with Commissioner Jella, Finn, and O'Meara. Adam and Director Kronosky and Director Badun, what would you recommend? Is this a matter of splitting up this goal into 2 goals, or is it a matter of rewording the title of this goal? Because we already have a Vision Zero policy. It's a 1-page document. We've all seen it, but it's very general, and that's part of the purpose we're here talking about these steps. So what do you recommend in this case?
At least my stance would be, the discussions that this commission has been having over the last few minutes as far as, action plan versus policy, that would, the premise of that discussion is essentially, educating the public more on this policy, educating city staff, educating local organizations, educating the public about the city's Vision Zero policy, that, kind of what you're describing, that, there's components that the policy is more of an action plan, not a, for lack of a better term, a policy. So I think just my input would be that having enforcement and the educational component of the policy / action plan would work well together, just because they both relate to the same thing and they both work well and mesh together well. So I would be in favor of keeping it as is and targeting the educational component of it to, again, educate the public of what this policy / action plan means.
One
Okay. Did you have
concrete
any? Oh, sorry.
thing I would like us to do, which takes place on other bodies, is that this commission review pedestrian and bicycle fatalities. When we get the police report, we look at it and we see if there's something that could have been done differently. Doesn't have to be a long-term thing, but we should get a review on it so that we just aren't saying, well, 3 people died over the year. That doesn't cut it. What you want to do is take a corrective action based on this horrible thing happening. Maybe it's going to be injuries. Maybe it's, but I think we have to identify what's causing it. And we can't do that unless we look at it and touch it.
Well, and I will say that the counties, the Traffic Safety Commission that we were just discussing, they do have, essentially this map and database that they contain on their end, highlighting, the automobile fatalities, injuries, and then the different classes of injuries, and then likewise with any pedestrian injuries, fatalities, any bicycling injuries, fatalities. So that potentially could be a good talking point, at least amongst this commission with the county's Traffic Safety Commission, to see, are there components that we could work together on?
I concur completely. Because that was the model I was looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Commissioner and Adam. Directors, did you have any other feedback on this?
I guess, my thought, and I don't want to soften what, the goal is or change it anyways, but just wondering if it isn't more so, advance the city's Vision Zero policy through enforcement and education as kind of a way to think about the goal. And I think everything that we've talked about thus far kind of falls in line with that as a goal.
Semantically, that makes more sense to me also. It helps me understand more clearly what that actually is doing or saying.
So, Adam, I don't know. Yeah, some wordsmithing there. How does that sit for you, commissioners? Thumbs up.
I like that better.
Okay. Any objections from anyone? Cool. Any other feedback, comments, questions on this goal?
Are you taking public comments yet?
Yes, yep. Go ahead, Alder Jennings.
I guess this is just more of a general comment. It's really interesting listening to this conversation while the Business 51 discussion is going on. And Director Badun, you'd have to correct me if I'm wrong, but this hasn't really come up as part of the stakeholder meetings yet. But it just shows how far we have to go with education, because I can just hear the comments. We already know that people are saying no one's being killed on Business 51, so just leave it the way it is. And then interesting comments about, well, accidents are going to happen. People are, distracted or whatnot. So I guess I'm just pointing out the irony of how far we have to go on all of this.
Thanks, Alder Jennings. And to your point, I do recall Amy, the lead of the consultant team, AECOM, mentioning our Complete Streets resolution, but maybe not the Vision Zero. Correct me if I'm wrong, Director Badun.
I know it has been brought up. I don't think this last round we've gone there, but I think at the very beginning it was mentioned we were going through purpose and need and discussing the safety aspects of things. Since then, I think we've only referred to it back as the purpose and need being safety, but not the specifics that may include Vision Zero or Complete Streets as they may relate.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or feedback on this goal? Okay, seeing none, moving on.
All right, so then the next goal is altering funding for sidewalk continuation from property assessments to the city's budget. So in a nutshell, the first step that would have to take place for achieving this goal is for staff to consult with the finance department to see, is this viable to do from the onset? And then those discussions that take place would be a good indicator for how we would proceed going forward with this goal, as far as, if it would be feasible from the finance department's opinion, or if it would not be feasible. So, and as kind of summed up in the challenges, that altering funding sources would have to be financially feasible to achieve this goal. So that would be the clearest indicator as far as whether or not this goal would go forward. Are there any comments or questions? Or
I think in the new, you may find help from the Fed on this one. This is a big deal they're talking about at the federal level, and perhaps there'll be something like 80-20 funding.
That would be fantastic.
And I have mixed feelings about this whole goal. I mean, many residents have had to pay for their sidewalks. And I'm sure some feel like, well, we had to pay. Why doesn't, I don't know. So there'll be mixed feelings on that one either way, I'm sure.
Yeah, and you really can't say that just because I had to live under bad policy, the new policy. And what this is really aimed at is the neighborhoods that have the most trouble with sidewalks are also the ones where the residents have the least ability to pay. And so it's a social justice issue.
That's a good point.
Well said. Thank you, commissioners. Any other comments or feedback on goal number 9 from the public or otherwise? Okay, seeing none.
All right, number 10, providing safer access to route bicyclists and pedestrians from businesses along Highway 10 to the downtown. So this is something that, as we discussed during the last meeting, that this commission should work with under the direction of the Plover River Crossing Work Group to determine ways that this commission can work with that organization and fulfilling their project. And Alder Jennings is on the call, so if there's any comments or thoughts about how this commission could work together, that would be a worthwhile conversation to have. And then the next step is to have the commission conduct a preliminary review of the planned work on the Highway 10 US 51 overpass bridge. So as you can see, the challenge was discussing more so the unpredictability of infrastructure projects as far as the timeline that such projects would ensue, that there's a lot of factors involved that could prolong the process, financial related, the approval process, any locational issues that could come about in terms of achieving this goal. So I don't know if there's any comments, questions. So this is, like I said, this is there's a lot of different steps that could occur for achieving this goal.
I think one thing is we want to get this goal memorialized in some sort of comprehensive plan as a goal or something, so that if funds are released for the improvement of bicycle or pedestrian infrastructure that are earmarked, that we can say this was a long-term goal of the city of Stevens Point. And I think that's really important because that really helps you in competitive, the competition for funding.
Any other comments or questions on goal 10?
I'll just Commissioner O'Meara is absolutely right. And fortunately, the Plover River Crossing is addressing what is in the Portage County Bicycle Pedestrian Plan. This was identified in that plan, this bridge crossing, and it's also in the Parks Plan. And it's in the town of Hull as well. So we have a really good foundation to build on with this, but you're absolutely correct that that helps bolster the application. And I guess my request as somebody who's part of this group is just getting support from BPSC on this project as we move forward. We will be writing the grant this summer for the January 2022 deadline for the TAP grant. So, and there's some other grants that we will be applying for as well, but the support of this commission will be very helpful.
And I think that it's more than just that particular crossing. As the bridges across I-39 are rehabbed or redone, it's much easier for us to force the state to expand the project if we already have it in our plan.
And I would just say that the Highway 10 crossing, that when we had a chance to review that a couple of years ago, I'm not sure anybody was really very excited about what they were doing for bicycles and pedestrians. It seemed like they were doing the best they could, but that middle lane for bikes and pedestrians never really sounded all that great. Plus, if you're going from the east to the west, you still had issues. But on the contrary, the Plover River Crossing sounds like just a fantastic way to get from the businesses to downtown. It's not as direct, but it would be a fantastic way to get there.
Thank you, everyone. Any other comments or questions about goal 10? Okay, seeing none, moving on to the next, please.
Right, so goal number 11 is educating citizens on safe bicycling practices through small group rides. So some of the discussions that we had last month was, trying to focus on, having these small group rides and partnering with local organizations, Cycling Without Age, the Wisconsin Bike Fed, to publicize, actually hold these small group rides. And then again, partnering with any local stakeholders as well, schools, businesses, advocacy groups that could, not only promote any of these small group rides, but try to, get the word out and encourage more folks to participate in these rides. So some of the challenges that we talked about is, making sure that these rides are equitable in nature and it reaches a diverse audience, and making sure that, this would be something that I thought of that would be beneficial to have is, one of these small group rides are having one of these rides being videotaped. So if there's any folks who might not be able to attend a group ride, if it's any physical limitations, if it's time limitations, things like that. So that there'd still be videos in place where they could, learn what specific safe bicycling practices would be pertinent to their day-to-day lives. And then ultimately, as we mentioned, some of the other goals as well, the biggest challenge is going to be for this goal is with the ongoing pandemic, having any group gatherings would likely be delayed, at least for the next few months, for a good portion of 2021.
Thanks, Adam. This is a pretty cool one. I'll just make
Great
a potential,
suggestions.
make a potential suggestion, maybe amending the title to include co-led by either city staff, the mayor, or public officials to amplify these group rides. Half serious, half joking.
Well, I mean, if that's something that, like if the mayor would want to do as part of one of these group rides, I mean, we'll have to check with the schedule, but who knows? So
It would help him on his contact with the sheriff.
There you go.
Yes,
Yeah.
with his little contest. I meant contest.
Any other comments or feedback on this goal? Goal 11? Okay, seeing none, on to the next, please.
right, goal number 12, increasing bicycle education in school curriculum. So this was, I believe, one of the goals that we spoke pretty ad nauseum at last month as far as, what are the different ways that we can incorporate bike education in school curriculum. So some of the references that were discussed were, the Safe Routes to School plan, trying to prioritize and better educate this plan to local schools to try to encourage them to fulfill the recommendations, fulfill the action plans that are included in the plan. And then the second step that you can see is, exploring any financial resources available, if it's grants, loans for these schools to fulfill some of the action steps within the Safe Routes to School plan, and likewise a donation of bicycles for schools as well. So some of the challenges that we talked about were, I think challenge number three rather, is a significant one, is that, what's being taught as far as bike education is concerned would likely be different, if you're comparing, third grade level to an eighth grade level. So being cognizant of, the differences of education that we want to achieve by, elementary school, middle school, high school, that's something that this commission would have to be cognizant of that in order to better fulfill this goal. And then, like you said, in some of the previous goals as well, is making sure that it's equitable in nature as well, that, if there's any of the schools here that are short on bikes, or if there's any citizens, any school children here in the city who don't have access to a bike, are there ways that this commission can help assist these schools and, these grants, these loan programs to better increase the supply of bikes?
Thanks, Adam. Any comments or questions on this goal? Seeing none, I guess we'll move on to the next goal.
All right, mapping out preferred walking and biking routes for each school in the city. So this would hold, bode really well with the last goal as well that we were talking about, focusing, in part on the Safe Routes to School plan to, have a sit-down conversation, multiple sit-down conversations among city staff, this commission, work with the local schools here in the city to determine, what are the best routes to take if, there's folks who are walking or biking to and from each school. And then once we have that determined as outlined, produce some maps, some info flyers. I know the chair shared along with me some previous flyers that were used. So there's a lot of different educational components that could occur as far as, promoting these routes. So I guess I don't know if there's any questions, comments as far as fulfilling the goal.
Not seeing any.
I have a comment.
Oh,
And
Alder
Trevor,
Jennings?
Trevor, our Chair O'Rourke, you would know this. Portage County can, Annie Wetter, they've done lots of work with walking maps, and this would probably be something that she may have interest in collaborating on and basically building upon the maps that they've already created. So just a thought.
That's a great point. Thanks, Alder Jennings. They do have a really nice walking map at the very least. I think they might have a bike route map, but I'm kind of out of the loop on that. So yeah, if you can add Portage County can in there as a note, that could be beneficial.
It was can, you said? Correct, Chair? Just making sure that everything's correct.
I think it's all caps CAN, I think.
Correct.
So, okay, thanks. Any other comments or questions on goal 13? Okay, not seeing anybody. Cool, yeah, move on to next goal.
Yeah, so this goal is similar to the sidewalk continuation funding that we discussed a few goals back. As far as, in fulfilling this goal, one of the chief steps would be to have this collaboration, these discussions among staff and the Parks Department to see, what are the benefits to clearing this trail, the Riverfront Trail off during the winter, what's the financial feasibility of doing so, and just ascertaining some of these challenges that would result on the park side as far as fulfilling this goal. So like we said in the challenge, financial means, the time and resources on the Parks Department side to fulfill this goal will have to be something that's discussed ad nauseum before we decide the next step for this goal.
Any comments or questions on goal 14? Not seeing any, so I guess we'll move on to the next.
All right, goal number 15. So this has been a discussion over the last few months and years potentially, as far as amending the bike rack standards within the city's bike parking ordinance. So as we discussed during last month's meeting, that any large scale changes to the bike parking ordinance would occur as part of the zoning code rewrite, which again, the timeline is to be determined. But if there are any minor amendments that could occur for this ordinance, that's something that city staff and this commission should discuss and then amend as part of going before this commission, their overall approval, and then plan commission and common council as well for their review and vote to approve on it. So like we said, as far as the challenge, kind of just summing up, any changes to the bike parking ordinance in the short term would be minor, relatively speaking, with any major changes to the ordinance occurring as part of the zoning code rewrite.
Do you think we could add some specific reference to the APBP? That's the Association of Bicycle and Pedestrian and Bicycle Professionals, as the standard for acceptable bike racks?
As far as, so that I would say would be, part of this major amendment discussion, which that would definitely be something that, when the time comes with the zoning code rewrite, that, this commission can discuss, what are the appropriate standards to include for these bike rack standards. So I would say that'd be something that would be a worthwhile endeavor to discuss at the time the zoning code is rewritten.
Thank you, Adam. And also to clarify, we might be looking at this next month, potentially, is that correct? Because I think it's still pending that we made those edits, staff had reviewed, and then we actually never recommended that change in the ordinance, did we?
We didn't recommend any changes, at least as far as this commission goes. That, I guess, what you see on the screen as far as the process is concerned for the bike parking ordinance would hold going forward, that any minor amendments can be discussed over the next few years, but any major amendments would have to wait until the zoning code is rewritten during that process.
Okay, I think since you and or Ryan did some wordsmithing on, it might have been October or November of last year with the minor amendments, I think we still need to bring that back. So maybe just a mental note to bring it back maybe in March for final approval.
Sure.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments on goal 15? Not seeing any there. Goal
Yeah,
16.
so then goal number 16. So this was the goal with the better educating the public on the city's complete streets policy. So as what I was alluding to before with the Vision Zero policy. So this was something where the last step to completion for this goal is to have city staff and this commission work collaboratively to review the existing policy that the common council did approve. Again, I believe it was 2017, 2018, sometime during that timeline, and to see are there any more detailed guidelines, policies for street design, maintenance, development that could occur. So that would be a big component of fulfilling this goal, is to see, as far as a review standpoint of the goal, to see are there any levels of improvement, of advancement that could occur within the existing policy. And at least as far as the educational component of it, that's something that, again, that this commission staff would have to determine, what would be the best educational initiatives to fulfill this policy, to fulfill this goal.
Adam, thank you. I have a possible clarification here. So from what I recall, and maybe as recently as 2 weeks ago, reading the Complete Streets or reviewing it, I think it's a resolution and not necessarily a policy. So I don't know if that needs correction, clarification, or if we need to review that again.
So the resolution, I mean, just by reviewing it, it's just essentially a pretty bare bone policy in comparison, kind of like the city's Vision Zero policy, where, you have your actionable steps, your purposes of, why you would want to have this policy in place. Then that's the component of this third step, is to review, what we have existing as part of this resolution, and are there ways where we can essentially beef up the existing policy to make it more comprehensive in nature.
Okay, so I just wonder if it's more or less confusing if policies replaced with resolution, because that's really what it is, just a resolution.
Yeah, I think if the idea would be to, if there's the existing complete streets is a resolution, correct? Right. And that's just, I think that's just part of Adam and I being newer to the city. Resolutions are great. How do we implement resolutions via policy? And so you're talking about two kind of different functions. But definitely something we can look into and include implementation via policy as opposed to just the resolution itself into the future.
Good, thanks, Director. And Adam.
And you guys are killing Janet here. Can you please capitalize complete streets in the title?
First of all, I was going to thank Commissioner Rourke for suggesting another word besides policy. But then, yes, thank you. Capitalize.
I'll make a fun request to have Adam send the whole Word, the original Word document to
I'd be glad.
Commissioner Georgella Finn for extra
No,
proofreading on top.
generally speaking, everything is great. Just especially in those headings, it's like because they're the goals themselves.
There you go. Any other comments or questions on goal 16? Okay, seeing none. Goal 17.
Yeah, so goal number 17 is pretty straightforward in that, city staff would review the cost for joining the Wisconsin Bike Fed, because as shown on the first challenge, there are different membership rates. Your more basic level, your intermediate level, and your more advanced level in terms of what the city's needs are as part of this membership. So this essentially the first step would be to have city staff review these different costs and determine which membership package would be most appropriate given our needs and our wants, and then allocating that cost as part of next year's budget.
Sounds good. Any questions or comments on goal 17? Not seeing anything, Adam.
Okay.
I think this is our last one, right? Our long list, our last one for today.
Yeah, it looks like it. So goal number 18, as we've been discussing the last few weeks, or last few months rather, is to reapply when the city reapplies as a bike-friendly community to apply for this gold designation. So the main steps here is to review the existing report card that we received a few weeks ago, and essentially lay out a plan to determine what are low-hanging fruit that the city could target over 2021, 22, 23, that we can see some immediate gains as far as achieving this gold status, and then eventually work on the specific goals outlined through the League of American Bicyclists over these next 3-4 years to improve our standing. So when the city has to reapply in the spring and summer of 2024, city staff and this commission would feel like we're in decent standing for a gold designation.
And I apologize if I missed it. Did the LAB get any word when they're going to send us the last designations report?
We did receive it, and I emailed it to all of you. It's been a few weeks now, but I can resend it to you if you can't find it.
Oh, was it the? We saw the report card, which is just a one sheet, but I'm referring to the like they go through a very thorough checklist. Yeah, that's just what you're putting up there, Commissioner Georgella Finn. That's just a report card, kind of the basic breakdown. But they should be sending us a very detailed report on steps to take, what actions we need to do. Obviously, some align with what we already do or have here in this document, but did they hint as to when they're going to put that out?
There are 4 steps on the bottom of the report card that outline, what, in their opinion, are the applicable steps that we could take for achieving gold standard. So I don't know if that's what you're getting at or if there's something else.
I'm pretty sure it's way more comprehensive, like a packet. It's almost like it analyzes all the answers the city gave to them in the original application, saying, you need to improve this. Here's some tips on this. It's pretty thorough.
Yeah, that's something I haven't received yet.
Okay, unless they change their policy. Maybe they're not, their protocol, maybe they're not doing that now. I just remember reading through I think ours probably 4 years ago, whatever it was, and as well as the universities, but it's very extensive
Mhm.
back then. So maybe they changed it. I don't know. Okay, thanks. Any other comments or questions on this goal from the public or the commission?
I have a question. Would it be appropriate for that report card to, and if you send it out, I apologize, I didn't see it, to send it out to alders?
Yeah, I can send that out to all the elders.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments regarding this goal? Okay, and that does exhaust our list, correct, Adam?
Correct. So I guess the next step would be is looking for a motion to approve with the edits that we've been making along with each of these goals. So I guess I'll leave it up to you, Chair, as far as asking for a motion.
Okay, is there a motion from the commission to approve the goals as amended?
So moved.
Commissioner O'Meara first, is there a second?
Yes, there is. Second.
Oh, Commissioner Fehrenbach, sorry. I think you are next, right? Did someone raise their hand? No? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say nay. No abstentions either. Okay, motion carries. All right. So that was exhausting
job,
our
Adam.
agenda as well. Thank you so much. Yeah, city staff and commissioners on working through these goals and developing them as they align with the bike ped plan and the city's initiatives. So very exciting stuff, and we're gonna start working on this. Woohoo! Chipping away. So
Yes.
stay tuned, and that brings us to our next item, unless anyone else has a comment or question before we adjourn. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Be safe, be well. We'll see you next month and via email. Take care.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.